So we'll start. Okay. First, thank you for bearing with us. I know it's the weekend, and we all have different things to do. So I'll be briefly conducting this presentation on the pharmaceutical counterfeiting. What we're talking about is the definition of counterfeits, scope of problems, some cases of counterfeit, and statistics, and what have been done as a counterfeiting measures. So the World Health Organization there is no definition for the counterfeit that has been clear or internationally been agreed on. So in the last 2 decades, the WHO has the definition of a counterfeit medicine in which deliberately and fraudulently mislabeled with respect to identity and or source. And counterfeit is always, it's not only for the branded medications, but it's also for generic products. About a third of all anti-malarial drugs in Africa are fake, and these fakes can find their way in pharmacies, clinics, streets, vendor stalls, and be sold online via thousands of unregulated websites. And more than 120,000 people a year die in Africa as a result of fake anti-malarial drugs alone, either because the drugs were substandard or simply contain no active ingredients at all. This المقالة هذه كانت في الرياض newspaper. 35% from the medications that been in the pharmacies are counterfeits and fake drugs. This was in 2015. The scope of problem that we are facing in counterfeit pharmaceuticals, it's not something new. It's started from 1990s, and recent problem has been escalated lately. Many more cases are appearing not only in developing countries, as we used to know, but increasingly in developed countries. Now, the International Federation of Pharmaceutical Manufacturers Association has estimated that 7% of all drugs sold around the world as counterfeits. The global volume of trades in counterfeit drugs estimated more than $200 billion, constituting and increasing more than 600% since 2005. And the WHO suspected approximately 1% of all drugs in the Western countries are counterfeit. This 1% really reflects that the robust law enforcement and stronger supply chain the percentage keeping it very low than elsewhere. And approximately 10 to 20% of drugs available worldwide are counterfeits. And approximately 30% of drugs available in some developing countries are counterfeits. So now the counterfeit doesn't only have an impact on pharma company, but it's eventually will have an impact in the Ministry of Public Health and in patients and definitely in treating physicians, as their reputation is in stake, and for the patient they will fail to rely on the drug or the physician or the health institute as a whole. So the falsified medical product may contain either no active ingredients or incorrect ingredients, or the amount is incorrect. And they are also found to commonly contain starch potatoes and starch or chalk. Some falsified medications products has been toxic in nature with either fatal level of amount active ingredients or other toxic chemicals. Now, this case in 2008 of 150 non-diabetic patients were admitted to 5 hospitals in Singapore. Patients were taking Cialis, but upon investigation, this medication was counterfeited and fake, and has been mixed with glibenclamide, and 7 of these patients have admitted in a coma due to the extended glucose deficit to the brain, and 4 of them died. So the type of falsification, 60% of these drugs have with no active ingredients or no ingredients at all, and about 17% incorrect of ingredients, 16% wrong ingredients, and 7% with other different issues. And the highest percent of the falsified medication was for the antibiotics with 28%, going through the hormones and steroids with 80%. Analgesics, we thought that it was the highest, it's only about 6%. This report from the European Falsified Medication Directive showed that 10% of worldwide medication are counterfeits, and about 50% of these medication have been bought from illegal sites, and about 30% of the medicines developed countries are counterfeits, releasing in 27.5 million counterfeit medication returned by the European custom authorities. In 2013, Chinese authorities determined 1,300 suspected counterfeits and a confiscating of 362 million worth of fake drugs. And in, the impact of some pharma company as Pfizer and Lilly. Pfizer have an own investigation work to counterfeit drugs leads, about 50 to 60 conviction per year. And Eli Lilly has invested $110 million to stamping a unique code for serial number on every drug package that it sells an effective tracking. And over 35% of counterfeit drugs are manufactured either in India or China. This is a report by the US FDA on the counterfeit drugs opened by the FDA per year, and just it's escalating from they started in the 1990s up to 2011. Which medications are targeted? We know that maybe it's only the cheapest drug, but no. Is it only the brand? No. It's generic brand names are falsified, ranging from very expensive cancer medication to very inexpensive product treatment of pain and malaria. So why medicines are targeted? We know that medicine represents one of the most regulated sectors of industrial activity, but still we have reasons for having counterfeit, attracts counterfeit to medicines. So many countries, especially the developing world, without adequate regulation and enforcement. And if there are, the protection or penalties for counterfeiting are inadequate. And usually the end user of these medications, they don't have well understanding of the drugs. So we'll always have, it's different than other goods. This case study of falsified Ativan and sunitinib circulating in East Africa in July 2017, falsified version of bevacizumab and sunitinib were seized by the National Drug Authority in Uganda. Both of these drugs were distributed in various cancer treatment centers in Kampala. So if you can just look at the drugs, we know that bevacizumab is an injectable, and it's been produced from other company, and the falsified one is tablets, and it has been with AstraZeneca, which is not the correct medication. So what's the counterfeiting measures that have been used? Brand protection solution and code applications. These are some items or some systems that have been done to just verify the drugs by the barcode, so that any consumer can get the medication and have the specific barcode or number and send it by the application, and it will just secure your brand if it's the right drug or it's falsified drugs. Direct printing, or we call it the PSID label. And this is the consumer can verify each unit. Again, it's the same thing by mobile and application. It's very easy. It's very easy to be used for all consumers. So, what is the role of regulation here in Saudi FDA? Here in Saudi Arabia, we have the Saudi FDA. We can't get any medication unless it has been registered by the Saudi FDA, and we have a lot of Saudi FDA officials in all ports in Saudi Arabia. In medical supply, from the part I stand, from the Ministry of Health, we are trying to coordinate with the medical supply not to get direct purchase drugs without making sure that they are already registered. Otherwise, we need to be sure that these drugs has already been get them from the manufacturer. It's not from the brokers. Exactly this will comply in other institutes, health institutes. So at the end, I just will need to highlight that 10% up to 30% of the drug marketed worldwide are counterfeits, and it's about 200 billion worth annually, and 1 million people die annually for the died by the counterfeit drugs. And it's 1 in 5, one counterfeit in each 5 drugs